He glared at me and said, "Don't love me and leave me." 5 years ago, Joe Sixing was the moon in the sky I longed for but could never reach. 5 years later, he uncharacteristically pinned me against the back seat of his car, his words sincere and earnest. He said, "Lu Yan, I've missed you so much." I never expected to run into Joe Sixing at the class reunion after 5 years. We were in different schools and different majors. There was no reason for him to be here. Amid the noisy singing and the blinding lights of the KTV, Joe Sixing paused at the entrance of the private room. His thin lips were pressed tightly together, his eyes cold and stern, so familiar it felt unreal. He looked at me and commanded, as he always had, "Lu Yan, come here." My wine glass froze mid-air. Zhao Wei nudged me with her elbow and whispered, "Hey, isn't that?" Liquid courage made me bold. To annoy him, I walked over with a smile and wrapped my arms around his waist. "Long time no see, ex-boyfriend." Joe Sixing's body stiffened noticeably. Encouraged, I reached out and rubbed behind his ear in an intimate gesture. "Did you miss me?" The people around us gasped. Joe Sixing didn't speak. His gaze, peering through his cold, silver-rimmed glasses, was dark and intense as he stared at me. I was all too familiar with this expression of his. Back in our student days, this was the look I feared the most. Fortunately, times had changed. I was no longer the humble Lu Yan of the past, and he was no longer the aloof Joe Sixing he once was. I cupped his face, stood on my tiptoes, and leaned close to his ear. "What's wrong? Weren't you the best at pushing me away before?" As if finally snapping back to reality, Joe Sixing grabbed my hand. "Let's talk outside." I dropped my fake smile and stood my ground. He frowned. "Lu Yan? Are we that close?" Caught off guard by my sudden change, Joe Sixing was momentarily stunned. I turned and walked back to the table, casually pouring myself another drink. "Mr. Joe, do you still think I'm your little sidekick? If you're looking for someone to fawn over you, go find someone else." I downed the wine in my glass and looked at him coldly. "Don't disgust me." The singing in the KTV room seemed to quieten under Joe Sixing's icy aura. Ignoring him, I sat down and continued drinking without a care. After a while, Joe Sixing said, "I'll wait for you outside." After Joe Sixing left, Zhao Wei sidled up to me, nervously curious. "Yan Yan, what's going on between you and Joe Sixing?" "Nothing," I said. "We haven't been in touch for a long time." Zhao Wei's eyes widened. "After you left back then, you never contacted him again?" "Not only did I not contact him, I didn't even tell him I was going abroad. Why would I contact him?" I avoided her gaze. "It's not like I liked him." Zhao Wei clicked her tongue. "You'd better mean that." I couldn't argue. After all, back then, I had told Zhao Wei 10,000 times that I was giving up on Joe Sixing. But not once did I succeed. Every time I cried and said I'd never like him again. The moment he showed me a little kindness the next day, I'd come running back to him. It was like I was under a spell nothing could pull me back. As our class's sleepyhead Chen Mian put it, Lu Yan is lively and energetic around everyone. But around Joe Sixing, she's as gentle and obedient as a cat. Even a fool could see she likes him. Yes, everyone knew I liked Joe Sixing. But what good did it do? He didn't like me. He was with me only because I pestered him into it, not because he wanted to. Zhao Wei used to say she wanted to crack my skull open to see what was inside. What else could it be? Water all the water that flooded my brain when I liked Joe Sixing. I really don't want to remember what it was like when I liked him. Making him breakfast in the morning, saving up to buy him a watch, bringing him medicine when he was sick, holding an umbrella for him in the rain, waiting for him after school, writing his name over and over in my notebook, even memorizing his phone number backward and forward. I still remember my 20th birthday. It was raining heavily that day. I bought my favorite Black Forest cake, bought candles and a silly birthday hat, and ran to find him, overjoyed. Joe Sixing smashed the cake on the ground. He said to me, "Lu Yan, stay away from me." Later, I really did run far away from him. I guess I got what he wished for. The reunion ended at 11 at night. In the dead of winter, a bunch of people were chattering about going for a second round, while shivering and scrolling through their phones for nearby late-night snack stalls as if they had some kind of illness. I wasn't in the mood. I took out my phone, wondering how to get home. Fortunately, my alcohol tolerance was better than before. I only felt dizzy but was still relatively sober. Zhao Wei clung to my arm, mumbling and repeatedly calling my name. Yunyan. Sob, my precious Yunyan, you've suffered so much. It seemed she'd had quite a bit to drink too. As we walked out of the KTV, I immediately spotted Zhou Sixing leaning against his car alone. He seemed to have never left. I didn't know how long he had been standing there, but there was a faint frost on his hair, and puffs of white breath hovered near his smoke-grey scarf. I ignored him and kept walking. Zhou Sixing took 2 steps forward, grabbed my wrist and called out, "Liu Yan." I was annoyed. "Zhou Sixing, stop calling my name like that. I'm not your dog." He refused to let go. Zhao Wei glanced at us, instantly sobered up, and excused herself to make a phone call before running off. She really knew how to make an exit. Zhou Sixing stared at me. Maybe it was the intense neon lights nearby, but I thought I saw a tinge of redness in his eyes. He asked, "Why are you avoiding me?" "Who's avoiding you?" I laughed in frustration and shook off his hand. "Mr. Zhou, having an inflated sense of self-importance isn't a good thing." He didn't argue with me, only reached out and opened the car door. "Get in." I didn't move. Zhou Sixing's knuckles were white as he gripped the black car door, so tightly that the veins on the back of his hand stood out. "5 years," he said, word by word. "Liu Yan, you've been gone for 5 years. Now, I just want to have a proper talk with you. Is that too much to ask?" 5 years ago, I agreed to my father's plan to send me abroad to study, because I saw Cheng Pei and Zhou Sixing kissing. Under the dim streetlight, the young man and woman embracing looked so warm. Warm to the point of cruelty. I'm such a petty person, I remembered that scene for a full 5 years. Before I left, I went to find Zhou Sixing one last time. He was sitting by the lake behind the school, reading a book. Holding on to my last shred of hope, I asked if he had anything to say to me. He didn't look at me, focused entirely on his book. "I have nothing to say to you. Is there nothing you want to tell me about you and Cheng Pei?" "No." I nodded. "Fine, Zhou Sixing. I dare you to never like me for the rest of your life." He frowned, glanced at me, but said nothing. I looked at Cheng Pei in the pavilion not far away, and finally said with a smile, "Congratulations." Then I ran away. For 5 years. The reason was simple. If he appeared in front of me, I knew it would be hard to control myself from getting close to him again. Even after 5 years, it was still the same. I tucked my hair behind my ear and pretended to be relaxed as I sat in the passenger seat of his car. "Take me home." The car came to a stop outside my apartment building. Zhou Sixing didn't turn on the light, and I didn't get out. Streetlights streamed through the window, illuminating his handsome face. After all this time, Zhou Sixing's looks were still infuriatingly perfect. I was momentarily lost in thought. After a while, he asked, "How was your time in the UK?" Snapping back to reality, I leisurely pulled a cigarette from my bag, holding it between my fingers, not bothering to question how he knew I'd been in the UK. "The milk there is delicious, and so are the desserts." He fell silent for a moment, then replied with a hint of laughter in his tone. "Still such a child. Always loving things like that." I didn't respond, lowering my head to light the cigarette, but he reached over and took my lighter. "No smoking." I was both shocked and annoyed. "Zhou Sixing, are you crazy?" I reached for his hand, but he tossed the lighter behind him and gripped my wrist. In the not-so-thick darkness, Zhou Sixing unbuckled our seatbelts and leaned in suddenly, kissing me. The long, unfamiliar scent of cedar rushed over me, leaving me dazed. My mind went blank. I didn't resist, but I didn't respond either. A long time passed before Zhou Sixing finally let me go. His gaze rested quietly on me, his cool hand brushing past my ear, pressing against my burning cheek like snow. It felt soothing, yet utterly shameful. I gently pushed his hand away. "What are you doing?" I pretended to sound impatient, turning my face away. "Zhou Sixing, don't tell me you like me now. I've always liked you." His voice was suppressed and controlled, like a mirror shattered many times. Painstakingly pieced back together by someone unwilling to let go. Pretending everything was fine. Who would believe that? I scoffed. Don't forget what I said back then. I leaned back. If you have the guts, never like me for the rest of your life. I don't have the guts, he replied smoothly, shamelessly. Anger choked my words. Yanyan. He called my name softly, his hand groping for mine. I pulled away, but he simply dragged me into his embrace. I trembled for a moment, immobilized as if caught in a spider's web. Joe Sixing wrapped his arms around my shoulder blades, resting his forehead against my shoulder. He said, I missed you so much. After all these years, Joe Sixing still had the power to make me drop all my defenses. I hated it. Not him, but myself in front of him. Joe Sixing held me tightly. I frowned and struggled, but he only tightened his grip. Why did you change your number? His questions came tumbling down one after another. Why didn't you reply to my emails? Why did you leave without saying anything? There was a vulnerability in his tone that felt unfamiliar to me, along with an unreasonable madness. It felt absurd. Are you interrogating me now? Lu Yan, he whispered, almost pleading. About the past. I can explain. How laughable. And I did laugh. Explain what? You didn't do anything wrong, I replied indifferently. You just didn't like me. His sharp brows furrowed slightly, his dark eyes reflecting the faint light from outside the car, shimmering like scattered mercury. I didn't like you? His voice suddenly rose. What do you even know? What should I know? I was puzzled. Grabbing my bag, I pulled the car door open to leave. But Joe Sixing panicked, trying to hold me back. Don't go. Lu Yan, please don't go. Ignoring him, I got out of the car and walked toward the building entrance. He chased after me, pulling the door open and stepping heavily onto the stairs. I looked back down at him and asked, Joe Sixing, what exactly do you want? The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on and off. Joe Sixing pressed his lips together, his words heavy. I like you, I scoffed. So what? Be with me. The smell of alcohol lingered in the narrow stairwell. Under the influence, my emotions felt magnified endlessly. Looking at Joe Sixing, I felt both infinite resentment and deep affection. My remaining rationality told me not to get closer to him. But all the memories, all the love and hatred, all the deep-rooted longing for him in my blood seemed to come rushing back with his words. I grabbed his tie, pulling him closer, tilting my chin up defiantly. So, what do you want to do? I started it. I did it on purpose. If I let myself go like this, how far would he go? The face I had missed for countless days and nights was right in front of me, and for once I wanted to be willful. I didn't know what was driving me. Perhaps it wasn't even logical, just instinct. The instinct to like Joe Sixing. The snake in my heart finally came to life, biting fiercely into his neck. Joe Sixing went from shock to immersion, gradually taking control, his thumb rubbing softly against my cheek. I felt like a vampire who had finally tasted blood in the sunlight, agonized yet ecstatic. In the dim room, I kissed his earlobe, whispering fragmented confirmations. Do you like me? Joe Sixing didn't answer. He was just fierce. His glasses were tossed aside, and his hand covered mine, our fingers intertwining. The phone by the bed rang several times, but no one paid it any attention. Only at the very end he stopped and buried his face by my ear. Are you sincere? I laughed brightly. Does sincerity even matter to men in things like this? Joe Sixing fell silent in the darkness for a moment. It matters, he said. It matters to me. The next day I was woken up by my phone. Groping for it by the bed, I squinted at the caller ID and reluctantly answered. Hey Dad. Yanyan, why didn't you answer my call yesterday? I rubbed my temples, aching from the hangover. I fell asleep. Oh, I've invited a few uncles over for lunch today. I've sent you the address on WeChat. Come join us. What kind of gathering is it this time? I don't want to go. Don't be stubborn. Be good. They're all family. Fine, I sighed. I'll go. I hung up. Joe Sixing's hand was still resting on my waist. After a moment's hesitation, I pushed it away and got up to wash up. While brushing my teeth, I saw Joe Sixing approaching from behind in the mirror. I spat out the foam, trying to stay calm. There are disposable toothbrushes in the right drawer. I have to go out soon. Just close the door behind you when you leave. He seemed a little dazed. Maybe because he'd just woken up. His eyes looked softer than usual. His bangs fell softly over his forehead, vaguely reminiscent of the boy I once knew. He walked over silently, watched me for a moment, then suddenly said, "Yan, turn around." I frowned. "What for?" "I want to kiss you." Before his words fully sank in, I instinctively turned my head. Before I could even process an escape command, he effortlessly lowered his head and kissed my forehead. I froze for a second, then immediately pushed him away. "What's wrong with you so early in the morning?" I wiped the foam from my mouth, still shaken. "Mr. Joe, you don't think just because we slept together once, I'm going to be with you, do you?" The morning winter sun was blazing hot, irritating me to no end. Joe Sixing stumbled back a couple of steps, his eyes glistening, reminding me of the police dog my dad used to raise. Equally obedient, equally fierce. But now, he retracted all his claws, standing quietly before me. "You promised me yesterday." "I didn't promise you anything," I declared, holding up my toothbrush like a command, sternly signaling him to keep his distance. "If you say I promised you, do you have a recording? Any proof? We never broke up in the first place. I don't need your permission to break up with you." Joe Sixing smiled, his eyes seeming slightly red. "Being with me didn't require my opposition, and breaking up with me didn't require my agreement either," he said, lowering his gaze. In the morning light, his long lashes cast faint shadows under his eyes. "Lu Yan, you really know how to play dirty." My heart ached sharply, and I quickly looked away. "So what if I play dirty?" Suppressing my panic, I glanced around, trying to calm myself. Then, drawing strength from his past wrongdoings, I looked up and admitted boldly, "What's the big deal about playing dirty?" I raised my voice. "Making such a fuss, aren't you embarrassed? Aren't you embarrassed?" That was something Joe Sixing used to say to me all the time. As Xiao Wei put it, Joe Sixing didn't live like a real person, more like a character from a novel. Academically, Joe Sixing was the top scorer in our province's college entrance exam. The moment his results came out, admission officers from two of China's most prestigious universities traveled all the way to his doorstep to recruit him. Appearance-wise, his cool yet striking phoenix eyes were framed by the sharp edges of his silver-rimmed glasses, captivating without him even realizing it. This untouchable top student in the School of Mathematical Sciences, the high-achieving talent in the eyes of many professors, had surprisingly turned down both prestigious universities and chosen to stay in our province. Even the university president looked at him with immense fondness. Naturally, from the moment he enrolled, Joe Sixing had firmly held the top spot on the unofficial campus heartthrob list. Appreciating beauty is human nature, and I was no exception. But back then, I didn't know how to be subtle or play the game of ambiguous. The way I expressed my affection was straightforward and blunt. "Do you wait for Joe Sixing after class and hand him a printed self-introduction?" "Hello, Joe. I'm Lu Yan, a freshman in the law department. This is my personal profile." He stopped in the hallway, his handsome brows furrowing slightly. "This is the School of Mathematical Sciences." "I know. I'm not lost," I replied cheerfully. "I like you. Please take a look at this document. After all, it's better to understand each other before dating." Those around us held their breath, except for one guy who whispered, "Are freshmen this bold nowadays?" Joe Sixing glanced coldly at the document, then looked at me seriously. "If I'm not misunderstanding, you're making an offer to get to know each other, correct?" I was stunned. "Offer? Other? Offer?" "I didn't make any offer," I said, shocked. "Have you made many offers before?" Someone in the crowd snorted with laughter. I quickly stepped back. "If it's about making offers, then forget it. I'm a decent person, Joe." Joe Sixing's ears turned red with anger, his face alternating between pale and flushed. After a moment, he snapped, "Law department, aren't you embarrassed?" As he stormed off, a kind senior approached to enlighten me. "Freshman, haven't you taken many law courses yet? Maybe look up the definition of offer in your textbook." I did look it up. The textbook stated clearly, "An offer refers to a party's expression of intent to enter into a contract with another party." I felt utterly wronged. How was I supposed to know a math major would throw legal definitions at me? The next day, after much reflection, I sought out Joe Sixing and solemnly clarified. I wasn't making an offer to get to know each other. I was extending an invitation to an offer for dating. He coldly and firmly rejected me. After that, I embraced the principle of shamelessness and followed Joe Sixing everywhere. I brought him breakfast in the morning, he'd ignore me and walk past. I offered him an umbrella in the rain. He'd rather get wet than take it. I worked part-time for 2 months to buy him a watch, but after his roommate delivered it, I never saw him wear it. Zhao Wei said I should give up. At best, others slowly warm someone up like boiling a frog. You're trying to boil an iceberg. You don't get it. I boasted back then. It's precisely such an iceberg that, once conquered, will be utterly devoted to me. Then, Miss Liu, how do you plan to conquer him? I obviously had no idea. With my shallow understanding of pursuing someone back then, the only way I knew to express affection was relentless persistence. I unilaterally declared myself Joe Sixing's girlfriend. At first, Joe Sixing would refute it, but once he realized that the more he protested, the more persistent I became, he stopped bothering to argue. I ate with him, studied with him in the library, and even sat through his obscure math classes, happily trailing behind him every day, gentle as cotton. Joe Sixing was at a loss. At most, when pushed to his limit, he'd say, "Liu Yan, aren't you embarrassed?" I'd retort confidently, "What's embarrassing about wanting to be with someone you like? What's embarrassing about wanting to be with someone you like?" Joe Sixing looked at me, repeating my words verbatim. Years later, having my own words thrown back at me, my face burned with discomfort. I said, "Joe Sixing, are you okay?" Who was it back then who never gave me a proper glance? He fell silent for a moment, then asked calmly, "Then when will it be okay?" I was caught off guard. "What? When can you be my girlfriend?" He stared intently at me. Under his gaze, I felt flustered, my instinct to evade kicking in once more. I didn't answer, walking over to the vanity and sitting down as if nothing had happened, calmly starting to apply my makeup. Except my hands were trembling slightly. Joe Sixing followed, standing silently behind me as if waiting for my response. Gripping my eyebrow pencil, I clenched my jaw and forced a thin smile. "Fine. Back then, I liked you for 3 years. If you want to pursue me, make up for that time first." After all, I never said I'd be with him once he made up for it. But Joe Sixing agreed without hesitation. All right. Maybe it was my imagination, but in the mirror, his eyes seemed to hold a flicker of joyful anticipation. He bent down, gently wrapping his arms around me from behind. "As long as you don't send me away, anything is fine." My eyes widened in shock. This is absurd. Joe Sixing's character has completely collapsed. I think he's gone crazy. I complained weakly to Zhao Wei over the phone. Totally insane. Zhao Wei, ever the spectator, replied, "Crazier than you were back then." I choked on my words. "Xiang Zhao Wei, whose side are you on?" My temples throbbed as I pressed them, seriously wondering what kind of misfortune I'd stumbled into. Seriously, in the years I've been away, did he have some traumatic relationship or something? "Unlikely," Zhao Wei replied, typing away on the other end of the line, multitasking as usual. "You know his personality. He might have a face that attracts attention, but his attitude. The guys in our class were so jealous. They used to say in the group chat that they DC girls going into G312 to confess to him every other day, and each one came out crying." My focus shifted unexpectedly. G312? He still goes to G312? "Old habits die hard," Zhao Wei said casually. "He's pursuing his PhD. Here. Even though he's not on campus much when he is. He's still there most of the time, just like when you two were together." Across the street, the traffic light flashed from red to green. My high-heeled foot wobbled awkwardly, and I barely managed to stop at the crosswalk. People streamed past me. The street buzzed with noise and activity. Overwhelmingly lively. Yet, I suddenly felt transported back to the late summer when I was 19. Standing on the sidewalk, I vaguely saw my past self stumbling along in 9-centimeter heels, clutching the stair railing of the teaching building. The not-too-intense sunlight filtered through the old glass doors of the corridor, illuminating the cold granite floor. Joe Sixing stood on the stairs between the third and fourth floors of Building G. His back to me, then crouched down. Get on. Liu Yan. Liu Yan. What are you spacing out for? My dad's reprimand snapped me back to reality. I belatedly noticed that everyone at the table had stood up for a toast, and I hurriedly raised my glass as well. Glasses clinked briefly in the air, and I took a distracted sip from mine. An uncle struck up a conversation with my dad. Hey, Lao Lu, did you review that cryptography PhD candidate I recommended? Didn't you say your department was short on talent in that area? That one. My dad seemed to glance at me subconsciously. There were some issues with the political screening, so we couldn't hire them. Let's not talk about that now, come on. Let's eat. I drifted off again, lost in my thoughts. Just then, the private room door swung open abruptly. Sorry, I'm late. Hearing that familiar voice, I reflexively and helplessly put down my chopsticks. Sure enough, the next second, my hair was ruffled. With elders present, I could only whisper through gritted teeth. The Say, are you looking for a fight? The Say pretended not to hear, beaming as he sat down. He poured himself a full glass of cola, gulped it down, then ruffled my hair again. Oh, Yan's back? When did you return? His round eyes gleamed at me, clearly up to no good. Why didn't you tell me? I sneered. Shouldn't you know why yourself? I still wanted a couple of peaceful days. The essay had always been a little troublemaker. Our families were old friends, so we attended the same schools from kindergarten through high school. Even though we chose different subjects in high school, we ended up at the same university, a true stroke of misfortune. As a child, I once called him Brother the Say. But as he grew into a show-off, my address for him directly shifted to the dog. The essay was self-important and had no sense of boundaries. Things like ruffling hair or pulling braids were common at school, yet it never affected his popularity with girls. He was indeed good-looking, and compared to Joe Sixing, his attitude was much warmer. Or rather, I thought he was a complete people-pleaser. I've never had much interest in people-pleasers. So back in school, I'd pretend not to know him whenever possible. But this guy was annoyingly hands-on. Whenever he saw me, he'd inevitably sling an arm over my shoulder. And no matter how many times I kicked him, he never learned. Now, his hand was shamelessly draped over my shoulder again. The food here isn't great, he whispered close to my ear. I'll take you somewhere better later. I glared at him and stomped hard on his foot under the table. Hand off. Stingy. He sulkily withdrew his hand, then turned to my dad with a perfectly polite smile. His change of expression as swift as Sichuan opera. Uncle Lou, I've prepared a gift to celebrate Yan's return. Can I take her out first? What are you up to now? Wrapped in my scarf, I followed the Say out of the hotel, watching him swing his car keys with a carefree air. He reached over as if to knock on my head. I instinctively closed my eyes and dodged, only to hear his laughter. When I opened my eyes, his hand was frozen mid-air, lowering only after he saw me look at him, pinching my cheek instead. Just making an excuse to rescue you, he said cheerfully, humming. No appreciation for a good deed. H-City in winter was always damp and clingingly cold, the chills seeping through thick down jackets into the bones. But for me at that moment it felt far more comfortable than the warm indoors I just left. Though I hated to admit it, the Say had indeed freed me from that stifling environment. I let out a breath. Thanks. The Say jingled his car keys. So want a ride home? I nodded. I've rented an apartment. If you're not in a hurry, drop me off. No hurry. He glanced at his watch. It's still early. What are you going home for? You just got back and haven't started work yet. Let's go have some fun. I shot him a sideways look. Where do you want to go? As the essay hesitated, an idea suddenly struck me. I pushed him toward the car. Let's go. Take me somewhere. Standing at the door of room 312, Building GZ University, the Say turned to look at me, his eyebrows raised in subtle confusion. What are you doing? A pilgrimage to a sacred site? None of your business. I pressed my face against the frosted glass strip in the door, trying hard to see inside. Before long, someone tapped me twice from behind. I swatted the hand away. Undeterred, they tapped again, I turned around impatiently. The essay. Would you stop being so My words trailed off mid-sentence. Joe Sixing stood before me, his eyes lowered slightly. Flustered, I glanced at the essay beside me, who shrugged innocently. I coughed awkwardly. What a coincidence. Want to come in? Joe Sixing asked. I politely took a step back. No need, I said guardedly, crossing my arms. Just passing by. Joe Sixing didn't respond, silently taking out his keys to unlock the door. Unable to resist, I stole a glance inside. It was a small activity room. The arrangement of tables and chairs was exactly as I remembered, and the corner was still piled with miscellaneous items from some department. Joe Sixing walked to the table, placed his bag on the edge as usual, took out his laptop and Kindle, and sat down to read. Standing there watching him, my heart felt as if tugged by a crochet hook, painfully uncomfortable. The Say suddenly slung an arm over my shoulders. Why just stand there? Let's go. My mind went blank as I looked up at him. Joe Sixing lifted his head, his eyes fixed on the Say's arm around me. Feeling guilty, I struggled slightly and whispered, Don't push your luck. But the Say tightened his grip confidently. Leaning close, he chuckled softly in my ear. Can I die a little later? Then he turned to Joe Sixing, smiling with his usual provocation. Joe, I'm taking my girlfriend with me. You won't mind, will you? I shot the Say a sidelong glance. The essay, you're really pushing it. Joe Sixing looked at me, his eyes like a puppy drenched in the rain, pleading and almost pitiful. Belated affection is worth less than grass. Logically, I should have felt vindicated. But looking at him, all I felt was a dull ache. Where had the proud Joe Sixing from the past ever shown me such an expression? I subtly clenched my fist. Joe Sixing repeated calmly, Girlfriend? Yes, I smiled, borrowing the Tsar's words to provoke him. I have plenty of boyfriends. Want to join the queue? Joe Sixing stared at me without responding. After a long pause, he finally said, You don't need to do this. Do what? I kept my smile intact. Did I throw an umbrella at you in a downpour? Or smash a cake in your face on your birthday? Joe Sixing's hands on the table slowly tightened, as if deeply ashamed. Meanwhile, a sharp sense of satisfaction surged within me, like tearing off a scab prematurely, a self-inflicted pain. Perhaps sensing my emotional turmoil, the Tsar's grip loosened slightly. Lu Yan, he said softly, we should go. But I couldn't stop myself from stepping forward, pressing on aggressively. Tell me. Joe Sixing stood up, walked over to me, and crouched down. It's dirty. I was stunned and overwhelmed with humiliation. You're disgusting. Joe Sixing didn't react, as if he hadn't heard me at all. Didn't you hear me? I said. I heard you. He kept his head down, carefully wiping my shoe. I don't care. I've always been soft-hearted toward Joe Sixing. If I hadn't been toughened by life's blows over the past few years, I might have knelt down right then and there, holding him while we cried together. But he had changed, and so had I. So I only stood stiffly, looking down at him. The old window in G312 rattled in the wind. The red and green paper cutouts pasted on it resembled imprints of Christmas trees, aged yet still glowing. Before Christmas during my freshman year, I had once held a milk bottle, begging for coins on the cold streets like a beggar. I'd heard that collecting 26 10-cent coins from strangers before Christmas Eve and putting them together in a bottle would grant the wisher's desire. In the end, I gave that milk bottle filled with coins to Joe Sixing. Make sure to make your wish at midnight on Christmas Eve. Are you an idiot? Joe Sixing sat under the fluorescent light in G312, not even looking at me coldly. I don't believe in this kind of thing. I shoved the milk bottle into the pocket of his oversized winter coat and ran off. Given Joe Sixing's personality, he would definitely have thrown it away. Back then, I never expected anything in return for my gifts, just as I never expected him to like me as much as I liked him. Snapping back to reality, I tried to pull my leg back forcefully, but Joe Sixing held my ankle firmly. Don't move, he said. Not done yet. I finally lost my temper. Are you done yet? The Say watched coldly from the side. Before anger completely clouded my judgment, he sensibly grabbed my arm. Yan! But I was already furious. Who are you putting on this act for now, Joe Sixing? Who's bullying whom here? You can get as angry as you want, Joe Sixing said softly. It's my fault. I froze in place, as if struck dumb by a blow to the heart, unable to speak from the pain. I truly couldn't understand what he was thinking. I didn't understand back then, and I understood even less now. The Say grabbed my wrist and dragged me away. As we reached the stairwell, I couldn't help but look back. Joe Sixing remained frozen in his previous posture at the classroom door, like a sculpture shattered on the ground. It looked pitiful. Just then, the Say spoke beside me. Don't look. I instinctively turned to him. The Say was still smiling, but it seemed slightly forced, his dimples faintly visible. Don't look at him, he said lazily. Look at me. Aren't I better looking than him? For a moment, I really couldn't answer that question. The Say being a jerk was one thing, but being good-looking was another. One should judge matters separately. He pulled me out of the building. The wind swept through the corridor outside, and the tree-lined paths on campus were thick with shade. In the chilly wind, I looked at the Say's profile against the light, and vaguely felt he wasn't too happy. The Say I knew was always carefree and bright-eyed, like sunlight filtering through summer leaves, so dazzling you'd want to close your eyes. But his calmness now unsettled me. I asked, "What's wrong?" Uncharacteristically, the Say didn't respond. He bought a cola from a vending machine by the road, popped it open with his fingers, and walked into the vast shadow cast by the gymnasium. I knew this place well. I used to play badminton here, while the Say practiced archery. We'd often bump into each other. Admittedly, the Say in archery attire was unfairly handsome. Second place on the campus heartthrob list was well-deserved. The path was empty. He sat down on the flower bed by the entrance, looking utterly nonchalant. So that was your ex-boyfriend? He propped one leg up, his fair fingers loosely holding the cola can on his knee. His washed blue jeans and clean dark canvas shoes looked unusually neat for his style. I frowned. You called him Joe? I thought you knew. Just heard of him, he said, quickly finishing the cola and clutching the empty can. He watched people coming and going in the square, his expression uncharacteristically serious. His round eyes held no smile, and his gaze turned slightly haughty. I really looked down on that guy, he said, lowering his eyes to fiddle with the can. And I really don't like him. You don't even know him. Do I need to? He snorted childishly, emphasizing his words. Judge a person by their actions. Based on what he did, I suggest you throw away everything about him, and any memories related to him like garbage. I despise people who hurt others and then make them feel guilty. They only hurt kind-hearted people and often feel smug about it. The Say seemed to be wrestling with something, squeezing the can until it deformed further, making a creaking sound. I was baffled. Why are you so angry? He stiffened, then smiled, his eyes curving and his dimples appearing sweetly. I'm not angry, the Say said, tossing the can into the trash like a three-pointer. Who said I was angry? I shivered and moved away from him, but the Say pressed closer, leaning his head against my leg like a cunning fox, brazenly exposing its belly. I stood up abruptly. Caught off guard, the Say's head hit the hard edge of the flower bed with a dull thud. He hissed in pain. Lu Yan, can't you show a little care for me? Serves you right, I said gleefully. Who told you to touch me like that? What about Joe Sixing? I froze. What? The Say sat up leisurely, looking up at me deeply. Can Joe Sixing touch you? I stared at him, speechless for a moment before finding my voice. What single quotes et to you? He's held you, right? He continued as if to himself. Probably kissed you too, didn't he? The Say's voice was soft, as if he were just thinking aloud. This side of him felt unfamiliar to me. I stared at him, pursing my lips. What exactly are you trying to say? Groups of students walked by, laughing and carrying tennis rackets, their cheerful voices drifting through the air. Suddenly, the Say stood up, blocking my view. He stood with his back to the main path, shielding me and blocking any inadvertent glances from passers-by. His eyes gleamed in the shadows. I took half a step back almost against the flower bed's edge, looking up at him in confusion. The Say suddenly reached out and pulled up the hood of my sweatshirt. Wind rushed into the collar, and the oversized hood framed my face. The Say leaned down, closing in on me silently but firmly, stopping just an inch away. A faint, fresh lemon scent wafted toward me. As I looked at him, it dawned on me. He seemed to have grown taller again. The Tsar's shadow fell over my face. He said, "Lu Yan, I'm not willing to give up." I blinked. Give up on what? He was momentarily stunned, and I took the chance to slip out from under his arm. As a friend, I appreciate you standing up for me. But don't you think you're interfering a bit too much in my affairs? I am worried about you. He paused. To be honest, my worry is useless. You never listen to me anyway. I silently looked at the Tsar's unsmiling face. He met my gaze, his voice soft but clear. Each of his words felt as if washed by the cold wind, stripped of accumulated dust, stirring a nostalgic ache within me. I've known you since I was 3. Your mum passed away early, and Uncle Lou was always busy dealing with criminals. You were practically raised at my house. We ate together, went to school together. When you learned the flute, I learned the piano to accompany you. When you learned chess, I learned chess to practice with you. Later, when you wanted to be a writer and started writing online, I even secretly created an account to support you every day. His words formed little puffs of white in the cold air. I'm not saying this to claim credit. I just want you to know that I understand you. I know you'll soften, you'll look back, because you care too much about your feelings, yet not enough about yourself. There are many things more important than feelings, moral principles, personal standards, dignity. But ever since you fell for Joe Sixing, you've thrown even your dignity away. Angered by the Tsar's condescending tone, I snapped. So what? What do you want me to do? Give up on Joe Sixing. A sudden breeze swept past. The Tsar stood in the clear wind, his eyes slightly red, enunciating each word clearly. Give up on him and choose me instead. Yanyan, over here. As soon as I entered the mall, I saw Zhao Wei waving at me from the outdoor seating of a cafe. I hurried over and sat down, apologizing. Sorry, I'm late. 2 other people sat beside Zhao Wei, a man and a woman who looked somewhat familiar. I nodded cautiously at them, then whispered to Zhao Wei. Why did you rush me here? What's going on? An hour earlier, while I was standing dumbfounded before the Tsar, my phone had rung dramatically. On the other end, Zhao Wei had frantically urged me to come to a nearby mall, saying she had urgent news. I used that as an excuse to escape from the Tsar. Avoidance might be shameful, but it really works. Now, Zhao Wei tugged at me, smiling. This is Chen Mian and Chen Pei. Don't you remember them? Chen Mian lazily greeted me. Long time no see, Miss Lu. That drowsy look was truly his signature. Chen Mian, the class sleepyhead who even skipped our class reunion. We joked that he must have overslept. As for Chen Pei, I subtly clenched my fingers and smiled. Of course I remember, I said politely. How could I forget? Joe Sixing's girlfriend after me, after all. I overslept a few days ago during the reunion. Chen Mian yawned. Today I was shopping with my wife and ran into Xiang Zhao Wei. We started talking about you. Wife? I looked at Cheng Pei in shock. Yep. Cheng Pei smiled, raising their joined hands to show matching rings. We're married. My brain short-circuited briefly. Hey, where's Joe Sixing? Didn't he come with you? Zhao Wei peered behind me. What does he have to do with me? Why should he be with me? Zhao Wei pouted. Everyone saw you leave with him at the reunion. Knowing you, I don't believe you could let him go. Besides, I have new intel. New intel? Yao Wei gestured toward Cheng Pei. Cheng Pei propped her chin on her hand, interjecting with a hint of resentment. I really liked Joe Sixing back then. I'd heard from others that Joe Sixing and you had a terrible relationship. Nothing like a couple. I thought there might be a chance, so I went to ask him. Chen Mian mumbled. Why did everyone at your university like Joe Sixing? None of your business. Cheng Pei shot him a glare and continued. I asked him why he was with you, and said that if he needed help, I could drive you away. He ignored me at first. But when I threatened to tell Lu Yan if he didn't explain, he finally caved. I asked. And then? Then he actually gave in, begging me in a low voice not to bother you. I said, well, you have to give me something in return, right? So after an evening class, I called him to a secluded spot under the pretense of asking for money and kissed him. My eyes widened. Chen Mian reacted even more strongly, nearly knocking over his cup as he stood up abruptly. "Wife!" he cried out in distress. "How could you do that? Hey, what's the big deal about a kiss? It's not like I lost a piece of flesh. It was in college and it wasn't cheating on you." Both Chen Mian and I were speechless. I asked him too. Why, if he liked you? Did he act as if he didn't? Cheng Pei took a leisurely sip of coffee. I asked hoarsely, "What did he say?" She glanced at me with a smile. "He said he wasn't too worthy, and didn't know how to treat you the right way." "What does that mean?" My hand resting on the seat edge slowly clenched. "I don't know what troubles he had," Cheng Pei said, her gaze clear. "All I know is, Lian, he's always liked you. Back then and even now." "Impossible," I immediately refuted. "Even if what you say is true, why didn't he tell me himself? Did you tell him you saw him kissing me?" I was momentarily speechless. Cheng Pei pouted. "You probably didn't explain clearly to him. How would Zhou Sixing know so much?" Chen Mian chimed in vaguely. "Someone like him, if he really hadn't liked you back then, getting rid of you would have been simple. In my opinion, he's just Sunda. Didn't he tacitly accept being with you long ago?" "It's different," I said, feeling both agitated and mocking. "If I couldn't even feel his affection, how can it be called liking?" Zhao Wei, happily eating cake, interjected casually. "Could there be a reason? Like, maybe he felt inferior?" "How could Zhou Sixing possibly feel inferior?" Chen Mian said. "Speaking of which, I once saw your dad's car stop in front of him." "In college?" "Yeah. Your dad came to see you often. How could I mistake him? Zhou Sixing's mom was there too. I saw him and his mom bowing repeatedly to your dad." Didn't something happen to Zhou Sixing's dad? A sharp ringing started faintly in my mind, echoing at length. "What happened?" Chen Mian hesitated. "Well, his father was a convict. For drug trafficking." Cheng Pei elbowed Chen Mian. "How do you know all this? Don't you remember? I hired him once. You have to do some background checks for such things," Chen Mian said. "I started a company a couple of years ago and hired him as an information security consultant. We worked together quite a bit." As he spoke, Chen Mian handed me a business card. I took it and saw he was the general manager of a company. He continued, rambling on. "I thought he was all high and mighty because he's so capable. But later I realized he's actually kind of naive. Last Christmas Eve I drank with him. He got drunk, and I took him home late at night. Do you know what he did the moment he got inside? He rushed straight to the window. I thought he was going to throw up and followed him, but he grabbed an old milk bottle from the windowsill, crouched on the floor, and stayed there with his eyes closed for a long time. When I asked what he was doing, he said, 'Making a wish.'" Chen Mian laughed heartily. "He was talking to that milk bottle, saying, 'I miss you so much.'" Countless thoughts clashed in my mind. I couldn't stay calm and felt utterly lost. I wandered aimlessly outside until it was dark before heading home. From afar, I saw a familiar figure standing by the entrance of my building. Leaning against the wall, he moved aside awkwardly as I approached. "Sorry," Zhou Sixing said softly. "I called, but you didn't answer. If you don't want to see me now, I'll leave immediately. But there are some things I hope you'll hear me out just once." I asked calmly, "What do you want to say?" He faltered, still avoiding my gaze. "I'm sorry." "Is that all?" At that moment, it felt as if our positions were completely reversed. Looking at Zhou Sixing was like looking at my past self. He said nothing. I sighed. "Forget it." Zhou Sixing looked up abruptly, his eyes filled with panic. He asked, "Yanyan, do I not have a chance anymore?" Zhou Sixing reached out and grabbed me. I scoffed mockingly. "We're not children anymore." I gazed into the dark night sky. You know, when adults fall in love, they consider returns. "What job do you have? What's your family background? Do you own a house or a car? What are your career prospects?" Zhou Sixing's fingers twitched slightly, but he didn't let go. I didn't look at him. This is the only way I can live. Growing up numbly, getting married, having children, following the path elders deem right, muddling through all the major life events I'm supposed to complete. But I don't want to. I don't want to become a step-by-step adult. I don't want to work a job I dislike. I don't want to attend those boring social gatherings. I don't want to waste my life with someone I don't truly love. I don't want to lie in bed late at night, repeatedly wondering, why am I living like this? Then don't do it. Joe Sixing turned me to face him. Just be yourself, Lu Yan. But it's never that simple. No one wants to grow up. But everyone has to. No matter how stubbornly I cling to the past, the world will eventually demand that I grow up. No matter how afraid I am, I can't change that. Back in school, the only thing I had to worry about was grades. The biggest problem was just someone I liked not liking me back. I had boundless, selfless passion and love. I could be a fearless deer, leaping into an echoing valley. But not now. If I treat you to a meal, you should invite me to a movie. If I give you a holiday gift, you better put thought into my birthday present. You have to like me first, then I'll like you. No one wants to be the first to take a step. Everyone hides their fear of rejection behind indifference. Somehow, everything around us became transactions with clear price tags. No one is willing to make efforts without expecting returns anymore. Maybe this is the right way. But I always feel that something has been exhausted over these long years. Now, looking at Joe Sixing, I suddenly understood the strange mix of anger and sadness I'd been feeling. It was jealousy. The more I grew up, the more I envied my past self who could openly and honestly like Joe Sixing. In that not-so-distant past, we did have some good moments. Joe Sixing was like a fleeting firework in my eyes. He truly illuminated me, but more often I could only stare blankly at the dark lake like a fool. We kissed on a summer night. When he was sick, I'd buy a whole bag of strawberries and ice cream, sneak past the strict dorm manager, and climb up to his room. Before a performance, he'd quietly give me a hug. But what he said most often was that he didn't like me. What he wanted was for me to stay as far away as possible. The iceberg I tried to melt for 3 years didn't thaw instead. I melted myself into a joke. I didn't want to be a joke anymore. I lifted my head to look at him. Over these years, did you ever think of me? I went to the UK to look for you. I froze. When? During my 2nd year of graduate school. A trip to the UK wasn't cheap for him. I asked, why? He paused, then chuckled softly. I don't know, he said quietly. Maybe I just wanted to see you too much. My heart felt as if it had suddenly collided with the corner of a table, leaving a bruise that wasn't severe but painful enough to make me wince. While in the UK, during countless fearful moments, I had imagined him appearing. Once, I even followed a stranger with a similar back view on a London street for 2 blocks, spellbound. Yet, all the unrequited feelings and wishful thinking I believed in only echoed back to me now. So belatedly. How absurd, I thought. You didn't even know where I was. Right. I didn't. Then why ... Because I wanted to see you. Joe Sixing's voice was unusually calm. Because I was going crazy wanting to see you. He looked straight at me, enunciating each word. Lu Yan, there are many things I didn't tell you in the past, and the way I handled things was childish and laughable. I know I was insecure, cowardly, unreasonable, and self-righteous. 6 years ago, my father was arrested for crimes, the person who arrested him. He paused, as if finding it extremely shameful, and slowly finished his sentence. The person who arrested him was your father. In the night breeze, Joe Sixing's features looked cold and distant. I smiled bitterly. You actually thought such a reason would make me stop liking you? I felt I wasn't good enough for you, he replied somewhat haltingly. Very much. Not good enough. Joe Sixing turned his head away, avoiding my gaze, his voice growing softer. Your father came to see me and said a lot. So I thought, maybe forcing you to leave me would be a better future for you. I took a deep breath, clenched my fist, and didn't respond. Lu Yan, he whispered. I like you. I really like you. I always have. Please believe me, okay? The next morning, I was woken up by the sir's phone call. I answered. He said, Hey, and asked, Are you home? His breathing on the other end was uneven, as if he'd been running. I replied, Yeah, and asked, What's up? I sat up and idly spun the top on my bedside table. He asked again, "Can I come see you?" Though puzzled, I instinctively nodded and realized he couldn't see me, and awkwardly added, "Sure, but I just woke up. Need to get ready first. Then I'll wait for you downstairs." I was surprised. "You're downstairs?" "Yeah," the essay said. "Luyan, I'll wait for you." When I opened the unit door in my pajamas, the say rushed in and hugged me tightly, like a golden retriever seeing its owner. I stumbled back 2 steps from the impact. The say. I opened my mouth to scold him, but he interrupted me first. "Don't be with him." He confused me. "Who?" His tone was fierce, but his fluffy head buried deeper into the crook of my neck, as if he were extremely wronged. "Don't be with Joe Sixing." I was both amused and exasperated. "Who said I'm with him?" The previous night, I had shaken off Joe Sixing's hand. "I believe you," I said. "But I don't want to be with you anymore." The streetlights shone serenely. Looking at Joe Sixing, many things suddenly became clear. Maybe we were never suited for each other from the start. You're not good at expressing yourself, while I need reassurance. You don't get used to explaining, while I'm good at escaping. You can't say you like me, yet give nothing in return. Leaving me alone, foolishly making a one-sided effort. Liking someone doesn't require a price. But love does, sincerity does, I do. Joe Sixing looked at me silently, the light in his eyes shattering piece by piece. "Is it because of the say?" he whispered. "Is it because he treats you better?" "No." I shook my head. "I don't need someone in a relationship to buy me midnight barbecue, pour hot water during my period, or give me this and that. That's not what I care about. I'm happy about those things because the person doing them is someone I like, not because I'd like someone for doing those things. The causality is wrong. I'd like the essay only because he is the essay. Just like back then. I liked you only because you were Joe Sixing. Yanyan, he called me. I'll keep waiting. I'll wait until he makes a mistake, until the day you part ways with him. He won't give you that chance. I won't give him that chance." The say held me, reluctant to let go. I patted his shoulder, then pushed helplessly, but he didn't budge. After thinking for a moment, I asked, "If you really like me that much, why didn't you tell me in middle or high school?" He said with a melancholic and resentful tone, "Maybe because I didn't want Uncle Lou to break my legs just yet." I couldn't help but laugh. "No early dating," he grumbled resentfully. I was warned. Pretending to have a sudden realization, I called out toward behind him. "Dad, what are you doing here?" The say immediately let go and dropped to his knees right there on the floor. Perfect. Paying New Year respects early. I coughed, stifling my laughter. The say realized he'd been tricked, and stubbornly pulled me closer. He took an arrow from his backpack, a special custom arrow with beautiful patterns on the fletching. He placed it in my hands, smiling lightly, his familiar dimples showing. For an archer, their arrows are their second life. "Now, I'm giving mine to you." The essay stubbornly held my hand. "Liyan, be with me, okay?" Not long after, the say announced our relationship at a gathering of both families. I was happily eating shrimp at the time, my hands occupied, so my reaction was delayed. The Tsar's dad asked, "With who?" His words were barely out before the Sess mom nudged him. Who else could it be? I blushed a little and couldn't eat the crayfish anymore. Since both sides' elders knew each other so well, the interrogation link was skipped. The say's mom was thrilled, pulling his ear and lecturing him not to bully me. My dad, however, sat on the sofa smoking for a while before calling me over. "That kid named Joe's Ixing ... I was surprised he brought up Joe Sixing. After a moment's stunned silence, I said, "I don't like him anymore." "Is that so?" My dad seemed to sigh very lightly. "That's good too." The say came over as if seeking refuge, habitually putting an arm around me. "What are you talking about?" My dad stared at him for a while, then put on a kind smile. "Xiao say, I remember you can drink, right?" The say danger. The following year, the say and I got engaged and moved in together, setting our wedding date for February of the next year. On Christmas Eve, H City had heavy snow. I was nestled in the Tsar's arms reading a book when he complained, "You've written so many stories. When are you going to write about me? Why do you want to be written about so much?" He nuzzled the top of my head. Isn't it romantic to be written into a book by someone you like? But we're already together. Can't you write about it just because we're together? I thought for a moment and replied, well, I write stories to fill regrets. If we weren't together, I'd write a story to make us together. I smiled, turning a page. Or you could bribe me. Bribe me and I'll consider it. How should I bribe you? He kissed my ear, then suddenly started tickling my waist. Like this, or this? I laughed and struggled, fighting back to not show weakness. We ended up wrestling playfully on the bed. Outside the window, snow fell thickly. On the table, a top spun ceaselessly. In the warm room, our ring-adorned hands were clasped tightly together. Many of my friends know I've loved writing stories since childhood, but no one knows why I started on this path in the first place. It was because of the essay. I know I missed you. I know I couldn't be with you. I know I made countless right choices, but it just so happened that on the day you mustered the courage to run toward me, I made the wrong decision. But at least, one day, we could come true in my story. I've already written about you. In countless timelines, in countless worlds, behind all the endings deemed unsettling regrets. At least once, I'd avoid all the wrong choices and reunite with you. You are my premeditated fate. End of main story. Extra. Hard to wake. Joe Sixing first saw Liu Yan during freshman military training. Under the scorching sun, the freshmen stood in a circle introducing themselves. Liu Yan happened to be in the center. Joe Sixing, then a sophomore, was passing by the sports field when he saw sunlight falling on her. The girl smiled brightly and confidently. My name is Liu Yan. Smoke, as in fleeting smoke. Not long after, he saw a list for the new inter-university freshman debate competition on the school's information page. Coincidentally, he saw a familiar name. School of Law, Liu Yan. He wasn't one to seek excitement. At that time, he somehow ended up watching the law school's preliminary round. The debate room was small. Many in the audience were just filling seats, playing on their phones. The topic was, should we be honest with dishonest people? Joe Sixing sat alone in a corner watching the stage. At the position of the third debater on the opposing side, Liu Yan wore a seat, speaking eloquently and smiling charmingly. Honorable opponent, are you saying if I buy fruit and find the vendor shortchanged me, I should pay first and get a refund and report to the Administration for Industry and Commerce? Then, pretending to be wronged, she stirred the atmosphere. Her retort, half teasing and half to the point, left the opposing side flushed. Even the rarely responsive audience laughed. Even someone like Joe Sixing couldn't help but smile. Proud, radiant or light seemed to converge on her. After the debate, a crowd still surrounded her as they left. Joe Sixing stayed till the end, not intending to follow. After that, he seemed to keep seeing traces of Liu Yan in his daily life. Her photo from winning the debate was on the bulletin board. The information page pushed about her participating in the Asian Games qualifiers for chess. Even when he sometimes passed by the back lake, he'd bump into Liu Yan pacing around with headphones, practicing English. Back then, he never thought of approaching her. But every morning while brushing his teeth, he'd inexplicably think of this person. A very unfamiliar feeling. Later, Liu Yan barged right in front of him. Hello Joe, I'm Liu Yan, a freshman in the law department. This is my printed personal profile. Joe Sixing concealed his panic with a cold demeanor. This is the School of Mathematical Sciences. I know, I'm not lost, Liu Yan said, smiling at him. I like you. Please take a look at this document. After all, it's better to understand each other before dating. Joe Sixing felt he wasn't worthy. Since childhood, he had clawed his way up with all his might, achieving the best grades, entering the best university. But his father was like a swamp dog, foul, silently swallowing everything he had. He hated his father deeply. Countless broken liquor bottles. An extremely narrow and dark rental room. His father repeatedly bringing back and hiding contraband at home, hoping it wouldn't be found. Joe Sixing wanted to escape, but he had to protect his mother. Someone like Liu Yan existed in a completely different world from his. She was so well protected, probably having sailed smoothly through life without tasting any bitterness. Joe Sixing thought she'd give up on him quickly. but she seemed to have infinite enthusiasm and patience, appearing before him time and again. So he retreated step by step like a defeated soldier. The heart is in a state of total defeat, throwing away armor and weapons. No one could refuse the son that lands beside them. However, one day he returned home and took off the watch Liu Yan had given him before showering. When he came out, the watch was gone. Of course he knew who took it. Zhou Sixing fought with his father. It was the first time since adulthood that they came to blows. The drunk man even teased with a smile, saying he'd go find the person who gave the watch and tell them all about Zhou Sixing's past. He really wasn't good at fighting. When he returned to school, he was covered in bruises and said nothing. Liu Yan anxiously dragged him to the campus clinic, watching him get treated with a pained expression. Zhou Sixing thought he probably really couldn't be with her. He couldn't let her face such a family, such a future. His dignity couldn't even allow her to see all this about him. As long as she didn't know, he could still be that excellent, proud Zhou Sixing. He fell ill. He lay with a fever in his dorm bed. Liu Yan asked what he wanted to eat. Zhou Sixing hesitated for a long time before replying with 2 words. Strawberries. He didn't expect her to actually come. Near evening, Liu Gan showed up with a bag of strawberries, a milk popsicle in her mouth, all alone, bursting into his room with great momentum, waving at him with a smile. I came to see you. At that moment, it was as if fireworks shot into the sky, exploding with noisy, crisp sounds. Zhou Sixing thought, maybe it was possible. Maybe he could stay with Liu Yan. He could take her to live in another city. He'd study hard, achieve good results, get a good job enough to support their future. They could go far away from that home, far away from all those things. This fantasy soon shattered. Liu Wei's police car stopped at the school gate. He found Zhou Sixing and stated the facts about his father's crimes and the current situation. Finally, he unintentionally added, I hear from Yunyan that you're an excellent kid. I hope you won't be affected by your father's matters. How ridiculous, Zhou Sixing thought. That day was Liu Yan's birthday. Zhou Sixing hid the pair of couple rings he'd already bought and smashed the cake she brought right in front of her. Stay away from me. Upon returning to school for his senior year, Zhou Sixing found he couldn't locate Liu Yan anymore. They told him Liu Yan had gone abroad, but he knew nothing. The pain hit him belatedly, driving him to seek out Liu Wei. Liu Wei said, You two aren't suited. Zhou Sixing asked, If I can become someone excellent enough to wait for her return, could I earnestly request you to give me one chance? Liu Wei didn't answer. From then on, Zhou Sixing studied and worked frantically. 5 years later, he finally waited for her return, only to suddenly realize he couldn't hold on to Liu Yan anymore. Zhou Sixing finally realized he had always been too confident, as if as long as he turned back, Liu Yan would always be standing there waiting for him. But everything had changed. He had really missed his chance. Zhou Sixing didn't attend the Sei and Liu Yan's wedding. But later, during work, Zhou Sixing accidentally encountered the Sei. Surprisingly, they were peaceful, even sat down for coffee together. As they parted, the Sei said, Actually, back then, things were always unfair between you and me. He held his hand, the wedding ring on his ring finger shining faintly. To embrace her, you only needed to turn around. But before me was a very heavy door. I had no key, no skills. I could only bash my head against it time and again where you couldn't see, until I bled. And now, I'm just lucky on the 1001st try. I finally broke open that door.